So today we're presented by Sherry Capel and Chuck Henrik. They're both of them are part of our evangelist team as document lifecycle evangelists. They have this amazing presentation presented for us today about data loss prevention. And if you didn't know already, next week we'll have another webinar for Litera Learning on data loss prevention. So if you're interested after today's webinar, make sure to register for next week's. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Allison. So today we're going to take a look at current data loss prevention solutions, focusing on how they impact on law firms, and then step back to review general goals around sensitive data handling that should inform any strategy. And then finally take a look at how Litera Microsystems breaks down data loss prevention into a 3-layer model. So take it away, Sherry.
Thank you, Chuck. Welcome, everyone. Where we want to begin is by setting the stage on current data loss prevention solutions, what we require them to do across our business, and the common challenges they can introduce. Gartner defines enterprise data loss prevention as the set of solutions that provide visibility into data use across an enterprise while addressing the data-related threats of inadvertent or accidental loss of data by the organization. Through monitoring, blocking, redaction even of such data, an enterprise data loss prevention solution is business critical. DLP systems deliver myriad capabilities to address the broad range of use cases and data detection required. Among these components are administration tools that establish what information is sensitive and in what workflows or jurisdictions, by what practice groups, or by what roles of users. It also provides policies which are enforcing or restricting or will permit override abilities by groups or individuals. It also includes configurable notifications and controls that alert the user on data that is identified, perhaps even explaining how it violates the established policy. For example, is the information going to be blocked? Is it going to be redacted? Or can the user acknowledge the alert and proceed? Additionally, traditional enterprise DLP solutions offer a technique called fingerprinting, which stamps a unique identifier onto a document, thus enabling the ability to trace its location on or transmission from an enterprise network. And because what is happening throughout the process is that the solutions are collecting information, reporting capabilities give visibility to the data that's been identified by the DLP solution. What data was collected, in which files, who issued or sent it, and to whom. And finally, to manage and analyze the data that's been collected, analytics tools often accompany the solution, whether an additional tool or something that's baked in. It's crucial that you have analytics tools to identify trends and threats, or maybe to aid in the fine-tuning of the policies and restrictions you've established. So, in these large DLP solutions, what are some of the common challenges? Probably primary and central to the comment I've just made about analytics are false positives and, more importantly, false negatives that are reported by the system or identified by the system. This can create challenges for the user. This can create challenges for the organization. Another challenge would be rules that are inflexible, where we can't give our users the kind of seamlessness that they need in their workflows, and equally where the folks administering the solution can't assign the kind of detection that's needed. Another challenge is handling myriad data types, everything from editable Word documents to PDFs to encrypted or password protected files, to sending databases or spreadsheets. The myriad data types create challenges in most DLP solutions. And finally, the workflow, the state of the workflow. We need to provide our users ability to manage data as it's in motion, going in and out of an organization, maybe data as they're editing and drafting, or again, finally, data that is at rest. So for example, something that's been archived prior to the enforcement of these policies. So all of these things combined summarize one of the greatest challenges of DLP, and that is that it can often restrict collaboration, precisely what we must balance as we implement a DLP solution across our law firms. Simply put, reducing risk is mission critical, yet so is the ability to communicate efficiently and effectively with our law firm clients. There's always a trade-off among different needs: security versus convenience, speed versus detail, resources, meaning time, money, and people versus ideals, and so on. Every organization has to balance conflicting interests so they can protect themselves without creating inefficiencies that cost their clients or themselves. Whatever resources you have, there are some basic principles that will help you design an approach to sensitive data handling that will work for you. In summary, a successful DLP solution will comply with relevant laws and regulations, whether HIPAA or GDPR, based on your jurisdiction, conflict of interest avoidance, etc. It will minimize risks of leaks and breaches, while reducing or keeping to a minimum the administrative overhead or interruption to the user's workflow or the flow of data outside of the organization. But what it will maximize is the simplicity while enabling scalability and flexibility as your organization grows and as your data detection needs change or evolve. So this is where we thought it might be useful to showcase, just in a few little examples here, one series of, shall we say, a DLP implementation, a DLP-enabled policy implementation, showcasing the Microsoft Office 365 online apps. You'll notice in our illustration that we've shown a policy tip at the top of the Word online document. Another one, Excel online, PowerPoint options, and so forth. Also in SharePoint. And basically what Office 365 does and what these policies do, these were first, by the way, introduced in Office 2016, it uses group policy and monitors with services of the platform where you might save in, say, SharePoint or in OneDrive for Business. Clearly, this is not where we save in a law firm. However, these are the kinds of things that can be enabled within Office 365. In these screen examples, you can quickly view some of the system-defined notifications and controls that are broadcast to the user. And in our next example, what we're going to show is that you also, through DLP enabled in Office 365, you can administer custom configured notifications as well. These allow the user to either specify the level of sensitivity, so as they're working on the content data in use, they can establish that this is a highly sensitive piece of information, or this is something that is top secret. But the policy can also identify ways that the user can enable it or override it. And as you can see from this myriad list of examples and illustrations, flexible DLP solutions must interact not just with the content, they must also interact with the context as well as the end user. To further clarify goals for our law firms then, Chuck is now going to elaborate on the finer details in our next segment. Chuck?
Thanks, Sherry. So next, let's take a look at how to manage and practice DLP and sensitive data handling in your context. How can you balance the need to share information with the need to protect it? When balancing protection and collaboration, what are our specific goals? As with any risk-benefit analysis, it's essential to understand your risk accurately. The vast majority of data leaks take place by accident. It's exceedingly rare for a rogue employee to deliberately expose sensitive data inappropriately. Yeah, it happens, but fortunately, the tools and procedures you use to prevent accidental exposure will also help make deliberate bad behavior difficult or impossible. What's more, most data leaks aren't reported, either because the user doesn't realize a problem has occurred or because they're too embarrassed to report it. So it's essential to incorporate sensitive data handling in any workflow, whether creating or editing documents, proofreading them, or sharing and collaborating around them. Compliance depends on ease of use. Ideally, your sensitive data handling should be fairly transparent to users and only require action when something out of the ordinary occurs. That kind of streamlined approach is much easier to deliver with automation that's intelligently integrated with the tools that people use, like Outlook or Word or whatever. Automation doesn't work in isolation. So the tools people use need to coordinate with each other if they're going to work effectively and efficiently. Metadata cleaning, for example, should work with your ethical wall protections, for example. Any solution needs to work with what you've got: money, time, and people. If you're a small organization or a sole practitioner, then the tools and approach will necessarily be a subset of what a global enterprise with thousands of people can afford. And here's the good news. With the right tools, your sensitive data handling approach can be efficient and grow as your business grows. It's always better to avoid problems than to have to fix them. Most dedicated DLP solutions require significant IT and security team admin time. They can slow processing and email flow, and like Sherry said, raise sometimes unacceptable levels of false positives, especially for law firms, since client documents are, by definition, usually sensitive. Dedicated DLP solutions have their place, but for the vast majority of organizations, a more straightforward, organically integrated approach achieves a good enough protection with a lighter touch and greater flexibility. A document management system is essential for any organization that handles sensitive data. A DMS enables you to control access to any file and generates an audit trail of who did what with it and when. If someone can't see or open a file, they can't use it or share it inappropriately. There's a wide variety of document management systems to suit any budget. Office add-ins, especially in Outlook, can help senders manage common email mistakes like autocomplete, as well as notify or prevent them from emailing to inappropriate recipients or domain. Metadata cleaning is essential to prevent sensitive data leaving the organization unnoticed. Metadata isn't a dirty word, so it's important to give users, senders, some flexibility within policy constraints so they can serve clients appropriately while maintaining compliance with any relevant data and ethical rules. Sometimes metadata is good metadata and it should be shared with certain people, other times not so much. If you or your clients have any exposure to the GDPR, make sure you work with your data protection officer to ensure that your policies conform to your and your clients' responsibilities. Ideally, every piece of data leaving your domain should be checked to make sure it complies with data policies and ethical boundaries. In reality, that kind of granular inspection isn't practical. It takes time to collect email headers, bodies, attachments, let alone analyze, report, and act on them. Doing all that in real time can add seconds or even minutes to the processing time for each email, for example, and that can impose an unacceptable burden on your mail flow. So you have to balance practicality and security. For example, when sending emails, you can add security by converting attachments to links and then saving the actual files on a file server that you control with full auditability, and of course with metadata control built into the process. If none of your people work outside the office, then you can use desktop metadata cleaning exclusively. But if any of the people in your organization send emails via mobile devices, then you should consider server-based metadata cleaning that automatically cleans any email attachments flowing through your mail servers, no matter what device sent them. You can mix desktop and server cleaning to find the right balance of coverage, efficiency, and manageability, just so long as you make sure that everybody is covered. Whatever secure sending solution you choose, it needs to integrate with a minimum of effort by any sender. Whether you allow people to selectively choose specific attachments to convert to links or always send everything securely, the email body as well as attachments being encrypted and auditable. It needs to be easy to use. If you have the time and resources, taking a look in the rearview mirror can help identify patterns and problems and determine if you need to make any changes to your policies and enforcement. Any DLP solution will look at patterns occurring across your systems to identify possible problems. But you don't necessarily need a dedicated DLP solution to do that. You can use reporting and analysis tools that are readily available. You may have them already, and you can do that yourself. Whatever systems you have in place, they generate data about who does what and when. For example, even if you're a small organization with outsourced IT services, your email provider will collect logs about emails sent and received. At a minimum, those logs could provide important information about conversations. If you have a DMS, those activity logs will also expose patterns. Any server-based applications, contact management, practice or case management, metadata cleaning, whatever, will collect data about activity. If you have the expertise, in-house or on a consulting basis, you can design sophisticated reports that slice and dice and mine the data across your organization to get as granular view as you need about sensitive data leaving your domain, at least electronically. And it's important to remember, today we're talking about electronic data loss prevention, not about people walking out the door with hard copies. Make sure you have clear policies in place about what data gets collected, where it's stored and how long it's kept, who has access to it. If you identify a problem, that data may prove valuable as evidence, and it needs to withstand forensic examination and chain of custody challenges. And that's just all part of basic good data governance practice, which you should be doing anyway. Tools that automatically help protect against sensitive data leakage are available, affordable, and effective. Litera Microsystems takes a simple, structured approach to DLP and sensitive data handling in general. Data loss prevention or sensitive data handling can be broken down into 3 layers. Controlling recipients, who receives what. Making sure that you clean the metadata attached to any documents that exit the organization. And monitoring activity, who shares what with whom, when, and in what state, cleaned or uncleaned, for example. Security starts with each of us. We make choices about what to share by email, for example, but it's easy to make mistakes, or if we're in a rush, we can forget to think before clicking send. Smart Send, for example, provides a first line of defense that allows firms to enforce policies that warn or prevent users from sending to domains or addresses the firm considers untrustworthy or inappropriate, as well as preventing replying to all when you've been blind copied, and other protections against common Outlook mistakes. Even when sending or sharing with permitted recipients, metadata always needs to be cleaned appropriately, with flexibility around what people can opt in or out of when it comes to cleaning metadata. Metadax enables firms to control what recipients receive when it comes to metadata, with server and local cleaning covering all email senders, desktop and mobile, as well as when sharing via removable media, or uploading to cloud collaboration spaces or file stores. With secure file transfer, firms gain control, flexibility, and auditability over attachments, optionally requiring recipients to authenticate before receiving attachments, allowing senders to determine when attachments can be forwarded or not, automatic expiry, and built-in kill switch on attachments. The firm always retains control over the downloadable attachment file itself and a complete log recording who does what with an attachment sent via secure file transfer. When it comes to cleaning documentation, regardless of the device or email method, Metadact ensures thorough metadata scrubbing of every file to reduce risk and ensure that your sensitive data remains secure. Flexible and appropriate metadata handling is key. Documents shared with one type of recipient, like a client, need different handling than sharing with the same document with another type, like opposing counsel or government agency. With Metadact, firms control all cleaning policies and the level of flexibility and control delegated to people who share documents, whether by email or any other method. Set it and forget it configuration. user and group management via AD integration, and easy application management let firms control metadata with low IT administration overhead and flexible but automatic coverage for all users. The third layer of defense that we mentioned, monitoring, involves monitoring activity and patterns within data flows and across systems. Your DMS, exchange, metadata management, secure sharing, practice management, whatever. Metadact server cleaning and secure file transfer include reporting over user activity through those applications themselves. And as SQL applications, they enable firms to analyze and data mine all activity both within those applications and together with other SQL systems like accounting, case and contact management, document management, to reveal patterns of behavior that help refine security policies and procedures, as well as identify problems. At Litera Microsystems, we're continuing to explore ways in which our solutions can be part of an overarching DLP rule set. Our customers have provided us with excellent insights into approaches that avoid workflow disruption, and we're continuing to investigate this as a high priority area. So let's talk about resources and reference. Sherry?
Sure thing. So in support of the topic today, we felt that there would be some great resources and references for you all to begin your study and evaluation. And so the first resource is the white paper that we have posted on our website. You all can find it at litera.com, and I put on the resources link. The link is also on the slide. Data loss prevention, 3 ways to start protecting your law firm's sensitive data. The next is a report that was commissioned by the Dutch government. So if you are in that GDPR jurisdiction, Chuck, you provided me with this insight where the Dutch government was commissioned to write a privacy document all about the data that is collected by Microsoft Office and its telemetry. And then there was a news article that shared information about it. So again, another very related sensitive data handling piece of information you should all be aware of. Another really great reference and resource was the Digital Guardian, who put together a blog post about the trends that are driving DLP adoption, the growth of the Chief Information Security Officer role, definitely bringing DLP solutions into an organization and awareness to the business. Evolving compliance mandates, we are seeing these things certainly become more and more prevalent. There's more places where we need to protect our data, and so ensuring that our solution reaches them. Data breaches that are now frequent and large, and bringing concern to all of our organizations and our clients, obviously. The fact that stolen data is worth more than the data we harbor inside, and so this is a really key defense that we need. And there's way more data to steal, and certainly there's a talent shortage for security professionals, and so the this particular blog post I found very insightful. I've also incorporated here the link to the information you will find that Microsoft publishes about Office 365's DLP compliance and regulations. And also in the next resource on the Security and Compliance Center. These are great resources for you to find out what Microsoft solutions do collect and how they do that. It will be very educational to you whether you implement this solution partially or not, but just again, you'll find some great insights there. And in the last, it will identify specifically the kinds of sensitive information types that Microsoft Office 365 looks for. I would encourage you to look at this resource, however, to educate yourself about just how much sensitive data can be identified across multiple countries, jurisdictions, various regulations, so you understand just how large an interest we do need to take, and our organizations are starting to take with the prevention of this information being let out of our organizations. So Allison, are you ready to queue up some of our questions?
Absolutely. So the first question comes from Matt. He wants to know typically who in a firm is responsible for the governance and monitoring of its DLP solutions.
Well,
Chuck,
yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, typically it would be a security team or risk management committee or team, but first and foremost, it's the IT team. No matter what size organization, IT is charged with maintaining whatever security policies the business has put in place. And if the business hasn't put any in place, then IT should step forward and do it themselves. It's also important to talk to the business about data loss prevention and how the business wants to handle sensitive data to make sure that the IT team is executing on a business directive. It would not be a good idea for IT to institute any kind of DLP or sensitive data handling processes or tools or whatever without talking to the business, because then the business might not understand what's going on with their data. And at the end of the day, it's the business owners, it's the data owners who have that responsibility. For instance, lawyers. Lawyers have an ethical responsibility over to control whatever goes out under their name and under the firm's name. And they should be aware of any protections that are in place that might change what they're sending between the point when they send and the recipient receives.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chuck. Second question comes from Carrie. What specific tools have you seen be used to identify patterns and gain insights from data we collect through our various DLP tools?
Such a great question. As we use big data or basically collect data in our organizations, this is a really critical set of tools because we need to find those patterns, gain those insights, notably for the threats that they would explain to us in the data. Additionally, what sorts of patterns can we use to make it better? So many of these solutions will collect their data in their detail across various SQL databases, for example. So any sort of SQL reporting tool can be used to kind of tie those things together and generate reports across multiple SQL databases, again, if you're using various solutions. Another tool that is really emerging, Allison, is the use of Power BI. Power BI is a component of the Office 365 solution set. And because it has very rich connectors, it is a tool that has been useful to both isolate security risks as well as, again, in a DLP environment, connecting to disparate data sources to gain insights from the detail provided.
Perfect. It looks like we're just out of time, so we'll have to wrap up. Before we end today's webinar, I just want to announce that next week we will have a follow-up webinar about DLP, and that will be presented by Mike Plum and Jack Nagroski. They'll dive into a lot deeper within the products mentioned during today's webinar, which would be Metadact and SmartSend. So if you're interested in that, make sure to sign up, and that'll be next Thursday. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll have another industry insights presented by Matt James. So if you're free on that Thursday, make sure to register now. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you, Chuck and Sherry, for presenting. Everyone have a wonderful Thursday.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.